In Australia, our needs are fairly high for working with gender issues. In the last couple of years, sadly for us in Australia, gender injustice has hit federal parliament, and we've discovered that federal parliament for many years has had a disharmony, an inequity, and a misogynist inequity within the male female culture of the parliament. And that goes to the very highest powers in Australia. We've also seen some atrocious and horrific domestic violence issues. So we have high needs around domestic violence. And sadly, just recently, we have discovered through a fairly important revelation a misogynistic culture within the Queensland Police Force. And so gender really is at every level of relationship, or gender disharmony is at every level of relationship in Australia. So we don't need it any less, we need it much more. So please think of us in your hearts as we try and deal with gender work in Australia.
I think back to one of the very first, or really the very first 3-day workshop that William and I ran. And I particularly remember on the final day, like the honouring ceremony, and looking around the men and the women, there was a drumming and dancing and singing, and there were tears. And I just remember looking at a couple of the women as they received these powerful statements and gifts from the men, and just my heart opening and feeling so blessed to be in this work, and so touched by the power of community that comes when we share deeply of the painful stories that have been part of our lives, and the oneness that can form from that. And that has been my experience again and again each time I have helped facilitate this work.
We as a team have been blown away by where people can go in a 7-week course. And I'd have to say that in the cross-gender sharing and even the honouring ceremony, how many women felt affirmed by the men, but how the men also felt affirmed by the women, to the extent where some women were saying, I'd love to have you as part of our male input into my children's lives. And just the deep empathy that was shared in this 7-week online program. It's powerful, it's transformative, and it's very exciting to be part of.
So my first gender equity and reconciliation workshop was 6 years ago now, and it deeply revealed my own internalized stigma and shame around my sexuality, and how really living in shame led to the suppression of my identity, behaviors, feelings, including my femininity. The workshop really gave me the space to re-examine, reconstruct, acknowledge, and profoundly start on the journey of self-acceptance. And it was such a beautiful space and process to be witnessed by and held really so deeply by other participants in the workshop. And I'm thrilled to be joining the Australian Facilitator team in continuing this work. My aspiration and hope for this work in Australia is to have the voice of the LGBTIQA+ community heard and witnessed as I was, so that a deeper and collective transformation can occur.
I've learned what it means to have compassion for myself and compassion for my own healing journey. And then that in turn leads to me being more compassionate to others as well. And also about in the online presence, in how much love and concern that there can be with doing these groups online. And it just astounds me that you can have that closeness with others in other parts of the country or all online. And also about having a space there for people, a safe space where women can feel safe with men and men can feel safe with women, as well as we create these transforming spaces for people.
I can remember some of the times that have really touched me in being part of the GERI workshops. And I remember in particular one time when the women were in their truth forum and they were sharing their pain and their suffering, also their joys that were happening in their lives. And I know that I was touched so deeply in listening to them, and I was like, I identified with their pain and suffering. And when that happened for me, that actually changed me forever, because I had that connection with women in their pain and their suffering, and their courage to share that in their vulnerability. My aspiration is, this is for GERI right across the planet, but especially in Australia, is that we have more men coming in and doing these workshops and connecting with the women and understanding them. So that's my aspiration, especially in Australia.